Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive? Today, we're tackling a big one, a question that has probably haunted humanity since, well, forever. What happens after we die?
A pretty hefty topic.
You got that right. And lucky for us, we've got a Crash Course Religion video exploring a whole smorgasbord of beliefs about the afterlife.
Hmm.
Honestly, some of this stuff is so out there, wild, you know?
I'm intrigued.
Oh, you will be. But before we get lost in the weeds of ancient underworlds and celestial realms, let's make one thing clear. We're not here to preach any particular belief. Nope, this deep dive is all about exploring the wildly diverse and sometimes downright bizarre ways humans have tried to make sense of death and what might or might not come after.
Sounds like a fascinating journey.
It is. And just to give you a taste, did you know that some cultures believe death resulted from a simple misunderstanding? Like seriously, a cosmic game of telephone gone wrong.
A misunderstanding. That's new one for me.
Right. The Crash Course video actually opens with this hilarious Messiah tale where a messenger god totally bungles the whole immortality message and bam, death becomes a permanent fixture in the human experience.
Interesting. Almost like a cosmic oops moment.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to laugh, right? But it does make you think, like, what if death was never part of the original plan?
It definitely adds a layer of irony to the whole situation.
Totally. And it also highlights how myths often reflect a culture's values and anxieties. The Messiah, it seems, saw death as this, like, disruption of the natural order, something that wasn't supposed to be.
Right, a deviation from the intended harmony.
Exactly. But not every culture viewed the afterlife with such, I don't know, optimism. Take the ancient Mesopotamians, for example. They believed in this shadowy underworld where the best you could hope for was to become like dust and clay.
Oh, wow. Grim.
Super grim. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of their most famous stories, paints a pretty bleak picture of what awaited them after death. It's like their vision of the afterlife mirrored the harshness of their earthly existence. A constant struggle for survival with little comfort.
It's fascinating, though, how these ancient stories, even the bleak ones, give us such a raw, unfiltered glimpse into the minds and hearts of people who lived thousands of years ago.
Absolutely. It's like peering through a window into their deepest fears and hopes.
Their hopes and fears in a world so different from our own, yet connected by these universal questions.
So true. Okay, ready for a change of scenery? Let's leave the ancient myths behind for a bit and talk about a concept that's central to Eastern religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, reincarnation, or what they call samsara.
Ah, the continuous cycle of life, death, and rebirth.
Exactly. It's this idea that, like, life, death, and rebirth are all part of this ongoing cycle, this cosmic dance, if you will.
It's a beautiful metaphor.
It is. And in these traditions, death isn't seen as the end, the final curtain call. It's more like a transition, a shedding of one form to take on another. Your soul, or at least some essence of it, is reborn into a new life. And this cycle keeps on spinning until you achieve, like, enlightenment or liberation.
Right, the ultimate goal being to break free from the cycle of samsara and attain a state of liberation. Moksha, nirvana, different names, similar concept.
And it's not just a random cosmic lottery, right? Your actions in this life, good or bad, determine what happens in the next.
The law of karma in action?
Exactly. It's like this built-in system of cosmic accountability. Good deeds earn you good karma, leading to a more favorable rebirth, maybe as a wise sage or something. Bad deeds, well, let's just say you might not want to come back as a dung beetle.
A potent incentive for ethical living.
You said it. Okay, now let's shift gears again, this time heading westward, to explore concepts that might feel a bit more familiar.
Heaven and hell.
Ah, those cornerstones of Western religious thought. Exactly. And these ideas, which are like deeply embedded in Western culture, have roots in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic teachings. It all started, though, with the ancient Israelites. They initially believed in Sheol, which was basically a neutral underworld for all souls, a place of shadows and silence.
It was less about judgment and more about the natural transition of the soul after death.
Exactly. But as their history unfolded, filled with all sorts of trials and tribulations, conquests, exiles, you name it, their beliefs started to change. They began to grapple with the idea of divine justice, like, why do the righteous suffer while the wicked prosper? Sound familiar?
A timeless question that has resonated across cultures and philosophies.
Totally. And their answer, at least part of it, was to develop a more defined afterlife, one with rewards and punishments.
Makes sense. It introduced a system of cosmic balance, if you will, where actions in this life have consequences in the next.
Right, like you reap what you sow kind of thing. And as these ideas mingled with early Christian beliefs, the concepts of heaven and hell began to crystallize.
Mm.
Heaven became the reward for the faithful, this place of eternal bliss in the presence of God. Hell, on the other hand, was reserved for those who rejected God's grace, a realm of eternal torment. Heavy stuff.
Definitely. And the imagery associated with these concepts has been incredibly powerful, shaping our perceptions of the afterlife for centuries.
Oh yeah, and speaking of imagery, it's hard to talk about hell without picturing those vivid and often terrifying depictions we see in art and literature, like Dante's Inferno immediately comes to mind. It's like a detailed map of damnation with specific punishments tailored to fit each sin. Talk about nightmare fuel.
Dante's Inferno is a masterpiece of imagination, but it's important to remember that it's just one interpretation among many. The imagery of hell, much like heaven, has evolved over time, shaped by everything from biblical prophecies to medieval plays and folklore.
So it's like a tapestry woven from diverse threads of human imagination.
Exactly. And it reflects our deepest fears and anxieties about punishment and the consequences of our actions.
Speaking of evolution, even the concept of heaven has undergone some pretty fascinating transformations over the centuries.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't always about pearly gates and angel choirs, as popular culture often portrays it.
Right. It was a much more complex and nuanced concept. Early theologians, for instance, had two main ways of viewing heaven. The theocentric view, which was all about God, emphasized this solitary communion with the divine. Then there's the anthropocentric view, which shifted the focus to human experience. Think like reuniting with loved ones, continuing earthly joys and stuff like that.
A move from a God-centered perspective to a more human-centered one.
Exactly. So what do you think caused that shift?
Well, the Renaissance and Enlightenment periods probably played a significant role. They placed a strong emphasis on human reason, individualism, and the value of earthly experience. This likely contributed to a vision of heaven that was less abstract and more relatable to everyday life.
Makes sense. It's interesting how our understanding of the afterlife seems to mirror broader cultural shifts, isn't it? Like as our values and priorities change, so do our visions of what might await us after death.
A reflection of our evolving understanding of the world and our place in it.
Totally. And even with all this variety, with all the different beliefs about the afterlife we've explored, there's this one recurring theme that seems to pop up across cultures and time periods: the hope of reuniting with loved ones.
It's a powerful and enduring desire, isn't it? To believe that the bonds we forge in this life somehow transcend the boundaries of death.
It really is. It speaks to that deep human need for connection, that longing to hold on to the people we cherish, even in the face of loss.
A testament to the enduring power of love and relationship.
Okay, so we've journeyed through gloomy underworlds, fiery punishments, celestial realms of bliss, and cycles of rebirth. Whoa, what does it all mean? Why do we even care about this stuff?
I think it boils down to our innate search for meaning. We grapple with the finite nature of our existence, with the knowledge that this life, with all its joys and sorrows, will eventually come to an end. These beliefs, whether they offer solace, inspire fear, or provide a framework for ethical living, are all attempts to answer those big existential questions. What's the point of it all? Is there something more?
Wow, that's deep. It's like we're trying to make sense of this grand mystery, even if there are no definitive answers.
It's a journey of exploration and reflection, one that each individual must undertake for themselves.
Absolutely. And on that note, we leave you with a question to ponder. If you could design your own afterlife, what would it look like? What would bring you peace, joy, a sense of purpose? Think about it. And let us know what resonated most with you from this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.
Always stay curious.